Morning, everyone. Welcome to Sunday service. I'd like to especially welcome all of our guests and visitors this week. I'll read first from Rays of the One Light, which are weekly commentaries on parallel passages in the Bible and Bhagavad Gita. This week's topic is the mystery of the Avatar, or divine incarnation. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. The Bhagavad Gita, in the 4th chapter, states, as we saw last week, O Bharata, whenever virtue declines and vice predominates, I incarnate on earth, taking visible form. I come to destroy evil and reestablish virtue. What is the mystery of this divine manifestation? Great avatars, such as Krishna and Jesus Christ, are born as babies, even as we all are. They take human form and go through normal human experiences as they grow from childhood to adulthood. They eat, they play, they may seem to suffer sickness and disappointment like the rest of us. In what way are they different from other human beings? The important thing to understand is that even as they are like us, so we are like them. Their realization can be ours too. They come on earth to show us our own divine self. The difference lies not in the manner of their manifestation on earth, but in the consciousness with which they were born. All things are condensations, so to speak, of the cosmic vibration Om, described by St. John's Gospel as the Word. Most human beings, however, are unconscious of their divine origin. The avatars, on the other hand, come consciously as manifestations of that divine reality. As the Gospel says in the 1st chapter, and the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Good morning, everyone. For those who have come a little bit late, there are a few seats scattered around, so please do come in if you want to. For those of you who don't know us, my name is Devi, and this is my husband Jyotish, and we're ministers here at Ananda Village, and we're very happy to be sharing our service with all of you this morning. I'm going to start by reading from a book of prayer poems by Yogananda, Whispers from Eternity. This is Prayer Demand for Illumination. O Spirit, beloved Father, Oversoul of the universe, Spirit of spirits, Friend of friends, teach me the mystery of my existence. Teach me to worship Thee in breathlessness and in deathlessness. In the fire of devotion, burn away my ignorance. In the stillness of my soul, come, Spirit, come. Possess me and teach me to feel Thy immortal presence in and around me. Come, Spirit, come. Come, Spirit, come. These readings, let me get settled here. In these readings from Rays of the One Light that we read every week, Swami Kriyananda, who has written them for our Sunday services, starts off with a progression, and he builds on the concepts, and it's not always easy to, in any particular week, to see the flow that he's created there. But at the very beginning of the year, the first week of January, he talks about, one of the first readings is, did God create the universe or become it? And it sounds rather esoteric, and what does this have to do with how we go about our daily lives? But when we develop that thought, it's important to realize, as the first stepping stone, that God, it's a deeper understanding of the nature of God, to appreciate the fact that he didn't just create the universe as an artist would paint a painting and then hang it on a wall and he's done with it, but he became the universe. He brought it forth out of his consciousness. And everything that we see, each one of us, it's so much fun to drive around the community now with the goats and the donkey and the geese, and it's just a wonderful experience. Each one of these is an expression of the consciousness of God. And this is important because it's the first building block for us to understand that God didn't just create it and then went off to do something else, got a day job or something. This universe is constantly a projection of the consciousness of God, eternally. That's why it says, not a hair on thy head goes uncounted, not a sparrow falls, but that God doesn't see it. Well, does he have some sort of incredible, satellite network where he's watching it all the time? No, he is it, or she is it, however you visualize it. And then from there, we go to the concept in one of the later readings of the sound of Om, which we mentioned in this reading, that he created this universe through vibration, through sound, through the vibration. In the Indian scriptures, it's known as Om. In the Christian tradition and Jewish tradition, it's Amen. In the Muslim tradition, it's Amin. But in all of these different traditions, there's the recognition that there is a holy sound or vibration that sustains the universe. And that our souls are united, are an expression of this Om vibration. And then we come to our topic this week, the mystery of the Avatara. Avatara is a Sanskrit word which literally means descent, the descent of spirit from a world of consciousness into form in this world. But it means more specifically in the Indian tradition, any great soul who has returned the favor. God created us in his image, and they have returned the favor by recreating ourselves in God's image. So in other words, uniting their consciousness with God. And it's so important, in fact critical, for each one of us, for our spiritual growth, for our self-understanding, for our self-realization, to understand that these avatars are not different from us. Just as God isn't separate from his creation, the avatar is not in substance different from what we are. Because if that were true, what would be the whole purpose of any effort we would make? We'd be in sort of one category, but then there would be the others, the great ones that were in an unattainable state of consciousness. And the whole teachings of yoga and the mystical traditions of Judaism and Christianity as well, if we could tap into them, are for us to understand that by self-effort, in cooperation with the grace of God, we too can attain that state. Christ said, to as many as received him, God, to them gave he the power to become the sons of God. So it isn't just, there's those guys and they're, I remember once someone was visiting a new person and we were giving a class and we had the pictures of the masters on the altar. And it was a class on philosophy, and we asked, are there any questions? And people were asking esoteric questions. And this one guy was sort of shy and new. He kind of raised his hands and he said, who are those guys up on the bench? And they're us. That's who they are. And the mystery of the avatar and the mystery of our own existence is to begin to see, I too can become that. And you know, so often, honestly, when people come to us for a blessing, if it's purification or whatever, I look in their eyes and I see, it saddens me so much because I see they come for a blessing, but with a sense of their own unworthiness. I'm not worthy of a blessing. Maybe God will come to everybody else, but you know I'm not worthy of this. Look at all the things. And I just feel like shaking them and saying, you are as worthy as Christ himself. That's what Master said. He said, one time someone was looking at our Guru Yoganandaji with so much devotion, and probably there was some sense of unworthiness in the person's gaze, and Master turned to them and said, remember, God loves you just as much as he has loved me and as much as he loves Jesus Christ. That God's love for us, it's not outside, but it's from the inside, because we are an expression of him and we are not separate. And the more we can appreciate that, the more we will let God into our prayer, into our meditation, into our service, into everything that we do. Yeah, maybe we joke and laugh and make mistakes and forget things. That has nothing to do with it. It has nothing to do with it. The most important thing is just to say, God, I want to know the mystery of my own existence. I want to know that you are present in everything around me and within me. And when we start moving in that way, when we start feeling that grace flowing through us, it's the most freeing thing we can experience, and it's the pearl of great price, simply to know that we are a part of God. He knows our every thought. He knows our mistakes. It simply doesn't matter. I remember once, many years ago, I was going through a period of, just feeling very unworthy and thinking of all the mistakes I'd made in my life. And this was a long time ago, so I've had a chance to make a lot more since then. And there was a special initiation, a Kriya initiation that Swami Kriyananda was conducting. And at the end, people were leaving. There's a blessing in the Kriya, but then people were leaving. And I just waited and waited till there was nobody else left but Swamiji and me. And I was just going through a period of darkness where I just felt myself just really low and unworthy, and maybe I shouldn't even be on the spiritual path. And I just threw myself at Swami's feet, and I was sobbing. And he didn't know what was going on. He just finished this beautiful spiritual initiation and blessing. But I remember he just took me by the arms and lifted me up and pretty much lifted me off the ground. And he just held me. And he looked in my eyes. And I know it was as though he were saying without words, whatever you've done or whatever errors of thought or action, it just doesn't matter. Don't you understand that? And it really freed a huge thing from me, a huge thing. And so the avatar comes, as Swami says in one of his plays, not to show us how different he is, Christ and Buddha and Master and all our line of masters, not to say, wow, those guys are special. And then the corollary is, and I'm special because I know it. I'm special because I worship them. No. We're special because what they are is our own potential. And we have to keep moving towards it, step by step by step. And no matter how many times we backslide, that's why they came. It says, we read this quote from the Gita, whenever virtue declines and vice predominates, I come again and again to reestablish virtue in this world. Well, that's on a cosmic level. When there are times of global darkness, and I don't want to be the one bearer of bad news, but I think we're there now. And enlightened beings come, Yogananda comes, the great saints come, Mother Teresa comes to show us examples of people with inner strength and courage and unshakable faith because these are the qualities we have. These are this is our deepest nature. And in the times ahead, these all may be really brought into good use, just to realize that whatever happens out there, look at the path Christ walked, look at the path Yogananda walked, and walk in their steps. And as we walk in their steps, we get the feeling of what that cosmic dance is, and the ability to say, whatever happens, I live in unshakable faith in God. Once someone asked Yogananda, this was during the Depression, when he was trying to establish, in the 30s, he was trying to establish his work in Los Angeles, and they had nothing. They were planting tomatoes on the hillside and eating tomato soup, raw tomatoes, fresh tomatoes, fried tomatoes, everything. That's what they had. And someone came to him and he said, well, what are the assets of this organization? And he said, none. God alone is my asset. And the more we can not approach that with fear, but with joy, we get to walk our talk. We get to live our faith. In 1976, many of you know, we had a forest fire here at Ananda Community that burnt the community to the ground. And we had nothing left, nothing. All the houses were gone, all our possessions were gone, everything that was an outward security. And you may think, oh, gosh, that was bad karma, that was unfortunate. I wouldn't have traded that for any other experience in my life, because the wonderful vacations or this or that, because in that time, I realized, where does my strength come from? Where does my security come from? If it doesn't come from within, you can forget about it, because everything else is bound to go. And I was talking with a friend recently who's a cancer survivor, and she said, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I found my own strength. And I tested what I could do, and now I have that to give to others. And she does beautifully. She does give and share in that way beautifully. But we need, if we can't see the divine around us and within us, what's the good of all the rituals and all the church going and all the hymns if we don't find that inherent divinity within and without? And the avatars come to, it's a mystery. Kriyananda talked about it. It was so challenging to live with Yogananda, because there he would be laughing and joking with them, but at the same time, he said we had to play that role with him, but then realize his consciousness was totally united with God. And Swami tells the story of once he was in a room with Master, and there was some discussion going on that Swami didn't need to be involved with, so he was just meditating, sitting in Master's presence. And he said, I was just so struck, almost dumbstruck, by the power of his divinity in front of me. And he said, just then, Yogananda walked up to him with a very mischievous look in his eye and handed him an apple. And so, yes, I am that, but I am here too. And we have to learn. That's the fabulous challenge, to balance that God's divinity is in every aspect of our life. In the hug a little child gives us, in the tantrum the little child throws in the grocery store, in the food we eat, in the soft breeze that caresses our cheek, in the freezing temperatures when the power goes out. There's divinity in all of those things. And our challenge is to always see it. Always say, God, I know you're here. Maybe you're hiding in this difficult situation, but let me have the faith and the strength to play it out and find where you are. I had a friend who was a very devout Catholic, and she spent some time in a Catholic convent. She wasn't a nun, she was a member of a lay order. But she said once she was in the refectory, and a little nun came in, just a cheerful little lady, and she clapped her hands and she said, Oh, the economy of God. If there are 3 people in a room, each one is teaching the other one a lesson. Nothing is wasted. And just to see, nothing is arbitrary. Swami Kriyananda, our founder and our teacher these many years, has in 1976 published his autobiography, The Path. Well, now he's in his 82nd year, and he's done a rewrite of The Path called The New Path, and it's going to be coming out this year. But I wanted to just read you, because it's very pertinent to our topic today, just the first few paragraphs of this book, chapter 1. There are times when a human being, though perhaps not remarkable in himself, encounters some extraordinary person or event that infuses his life with great meaning. My own life was blessed with such an encounter more than 60 years ago in 1948, right here in America, of all lands the epitome of bustling efficiency, material progressiveness, and pragmatic know-how. I met a great God-known master whose constant vision was of eternity. His name was Paramahansa Yogananda. He was from India, though it would be truer to say that his home was the whole world. Had anyone suggested to me prior to that meeting that so much radiance, dynamic joy, unaffected humility, and love might be found in a single human being, I would have replied, though perhaps with a sigh of regret, that such perfection is not attainable by man. And had anyone suggested to me further that divine miracles have occurred in this scientific age, I would have laughed outright. For in those days, proud as I was in my intellectual 20th century wisdom, I mocked even the miracles of the Bible. No longer. I have seen things that made a mockery of mockery itself. I know now from personal experience that divine wonders do occur on earth, and I believe that the time is approaching when countless men and women will no more think of doubting God than they doubt the very air they breathe. For God is not dead. It is man only who dies to all that is wonderful in life when he limits himself to worldly acquisitions and to advancing himself in worldly eyes, but overlooks those spiritual realities which are the foundation of all that he truly is. So the mystery of the Avatar is the mystery of who we are. They're hand in hand. And when we can appreciate the divinity all around us, we begin to accept the divinity that God has planted in each one of us.
Devi and I made a bargain that we would both talk. And I gave her a little signal saying, I thought that was wonderful, that was enough. And she gave me that look back that said, oh, no, you don't. Master said he taught his disciples best just by raising an eyebrow. I know what he meant. So this question of the avatar is a very, very interesting and important one for us, because if we can come to understand that the avatar essentially is not something separate from ourselves, but really, since everything is an extension of God, and we are part of that the avatar represents that highest part of our own self, then we begin to get closer to the truth. Because if we separate the avatar, or if we separate God as something other than ourselves, then it creates a chasm that's very hard to get over. If we accept that the avatar is in fact our own highest self, but acting in a way that for some reason there's a veil over our consciousness and we aren't yet able to act or to be in that expanded state, but that will come. Swami said one time with Master that he had been in a kind of a pageant, and in those days very few people had beards, and because he was quite young and Master had him teaching the public, Master had him grow a beard so that he would look a little bit older. And Swami said because of this, they had him in this Christmas pageant playing the part of Jesus, and all he had to do was sit there and kind of look holy. Didn't have any speaking part. And so at any rate, when he came back, Master asked him how it went. And Swami said, it went fine. But you know, Master, I would rather be like Christ than just look like Christ. And Master, he said it a little bit humorously, expecting Master to kind of laugh. But Master said very seriously to him, that will come. And so for each of us, that will come. What makes that come? What is it that's the driving force that allows us to achieve that consciousness? At the beginning, it seems like the avatar comes a little bit like the doctor comes. We're sick in consciousness or in physical body, and the avatar, like the doctor, gives us a prescription. Master, in fact, used this analogy, and he said that if a doctor gives you a prescription, the wise person follows the prescription. The foolish one frames the prescription and puts it up on the wall and worships it. It isn't the prescription, it isn't what he said, it isn't the words. It's that the avatar or the enlightened one comes knowing what we're going through. Why? Because he or she has also gone through it. Knows exactly, in fact, knows much, much better what we're going through than we ourselves know. And so he gives us a prescription of living. And the first step is to want that prescription, to want to be well, to want to change. Without that, the avatar, God will wait millennia. He'll wait 1 billion years. In fact, Master said in one of his interpretations of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam that some people are still in delusion who came into manifestation at the beginning of the day of Brahma. They're still in delusion at the end of that day of Brahma. Day of Brahma is God sends creation out. It plays itself out for billions and billions of years, and then he withdraws into the night of Brahma. And then another day of Brahma comes. So think of that a soul comes in at the beginning of the day of Brahma and is still wandering around in delusion, mired in the muck of Maya at the end of a day of Brahma. Why? Because they don't want to get out. They don't want enlightenment. So the first step is to want it. God chooses those who choose him. We say it every week in our festival. So our first duty is to want that. And when we want it sufficiently, a doctor comes with a prescription and gives us a prescription for living, and we begin to follow that. In our case, meditate every day, do kriya, do service, think of others, give selflessly. Try to have your consciousness uplifted, be even-minded and cheerful. A few things, not a lot. These prescriptions are not complicated. So then we follow that prescription. And as we follow the prescription, somehow the illness of delusion begins to pass away. and we get healthier and healthier in body, mind, and soul. As that happens, we realize that there was something behind that whole drama, that it seemed like we were going to the doctor and he was giving us a prescription, which is a way to live and a way to think. And indeed, that's true. But there was a deeper drama going on, and the prescription was not the teachings, not the do this and don't do that, but it was the Avatar himself. The real way out is to look at the chosen guide and not do what he says necessarily as the whole of it, but to try to become like him. That's why Master, one of the very few books that he recommended to people was The Imitation of Christ. That when we imitate Christ, we become like Christ. When we imitate the Avatar, we become like the Avatar. And how do we do that? With complete self-offering, with complete desire to be in attunement with their consciousness. Swami said, and it always impressed me, he said many years ago, he said, there was a long period when I wanted every thought, every single thought that came into my mind to be aligned, to be in tune with Master. And I've dedicated myself to that. But I had the realization that that alone is not enough. That now I want every feeling, every emotion, everything that appears in my consciousness to be aligned and in tune with the Master. And when we attempt to imitate the Avatar, then His grace, because He is not separate from us, as long as we want it, God will help us attain it. Everything. If we want money, God will help us attain money. If we want delusion, God will help us with that too. He, after all, created it so that, as Master said, for our entertainment and education, but how few are either entertained or educated. If we want that, that's what we get. But if we want the Avatar and to be like Him, that too is what we get. So let's dedicate ourselves to trying as much as possible to live our lives in attunement with the consciousness of the great ones that have come to lead us out of darkness.